In the previous videos we spoke about my choices, my class choices for my all-rounder main, and more recently we spoke about ranged DPS choices for me that I'm planning for Shadowlands and for the remainder of BFA patch 8.3. Today I'd like to talk to you about Melee DPS. I know that some of the main classes of choice, they could be seen as Melee DPS choices as well, but one thing that you have to understand about an altoholic, about a casual person who plays World of Warcraft and likes a lot of classes and a lot of characters like I do and like a lot of my viewers do, we don't want to put all eggs into one basket necessarily. We don't want one all-rounder character and that's it, and just stick to it. That's why we have different characters for different jobs. And that is what we'll be talking about today. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I am your host Gyro, and today we will conclude my mini-series of videos that offered you my personal take on the variety of classes and specs in World of Warcraft, how I see them currently in BFA patch 8.3, and would I play them now and in Shadowlands. If you haven't somehow seen my class breakdown videos for the main all-rounder pick and the ranged DPS analysis, please find those on my channel, as they'll set a little bit of context to what we'll be discussing today. So maybe it's a good idea to watch those videos first. So it is time to review the Melee DPS capable classes, and we'll use the same format as I've used in the past. We'll go through the list and I'll comment on my likes and dislikes as I go, without wasting your and my time with unnecessary disclaimers and apologies. Everyone plays differently, and this is just another my personal take on the current and unfolding situation with the classes. Please share your thoughts with me and the other viewers in the comments below this video. And make sure to subscribe to show your support and not miss out on any follow-up videos that I'll surely publish. So let's get the obvious contender out of the way first, to be fair to the other classes and specs. It is the Unholy DK. Unholy DK happens to be my general class and spec of choice for Shadowlands at the moment of recording of this video. And no, I'm still not in beta, so I have not tested DKs myself, and if they end up severely and unpleasantly underperforming, I will review my choice. At the moment they happen to be my all-rounder choice though, with the solid blood tanking spec backing this choice up for me. Which is why, for the purposes of targeted selection of a Melee DPS of choice as a job, right, I'm going to be fair and disqualify Unholy DK from this selection. Otherwise, we could just wrap up this video here and be done with it, but that would be boring, right? Frost Death Knights, Frost DK spec is in the running here today, yes, in spite of my main class selection, because I wasn't considering to go ahead with Frost as my main spec for Shadowlands. That's why I think it is fair to list Frost here. From the pure Melee DPS perspective, however, I do find Frost very enjoyable. Just like any other classic DPS kind of player and DK fantasy fan, I look forward to the return of two-handed Frost in Shadowlands, even though at the moment I can't clearly picture how it'll work out and how will it feel. Will it actually be for the better, or will it only wash out the spec? I associate Frost DPS in my mind with fast attacks, and most of Frost talents and abilities, they fit into that fast and hard kind of hitting playstyle, but mostly fast rather than hard. With the slow and harder hitting two-handed though, I just don't know how it will feel anymore, to be honest. So I wouldn't be putting my eggs into that basket yet, I don't think. Additionally, and this is where once again I'd like to point out how being an altoholic, self-confessed, you know, altoholic shows its particulars, I suppose, to people who are unfamiliar with how we usually play World of Warcraft. I see actually a substantial negative with choosing Frost spec as melee DPS because it will offer me no change from my mainstream all-rounder main class for Shadowlands, because it's a DK. In other words, while a non-alcoholic player would see no need to switch to another character completely and they would think that doing everything on the same character, on the same tune, it's a good thing. For me, it would be actually quite boring. And I'd actually like a change if I'm choosing to go DPS to DPS Mythic Plus or to DPS LFR. I would like a change rather than just using my Unholy DK, let's say, or generally Death Knight per se, to solo Torghast and stuff like that. So Frost DK, that's why I will actually let Frost DK fall off my list, sadly. Yeah. Havoc Demon Hunter. Havoc Demon Hunter has been mentioned as a very strong contender for my main class and all-rounder spec of choice for Shadowlands in the recently published video, but here we're looking at it kind of closer and from more of a specialist perspective, from the lens of whether or not it will cut it for my melee DPS spec of choice. And to cut to the chase, I'll say yes. I think it would cut for this purpose, for the role, for a whole bunch of wonderful reasons, including how easy it is to play, how few buttons I need to push to make it work, and the average very, very well-performing numbers that it pumps out. It didn't become my all-rounder class and spec of choice, but it will unsurprisingly make an appearance in my top 3 choices in this video, I can tell you right now. There are some other very strong contenders, however, who are arguably a little bit more fun. They could be even a bit more fun than Demon Hunter. So let's just not get ahead of ourselves here just yet and give those a chance too, shall we? Fury Warriors. I said in the very recent Fury Warrior performance review, in the context of a Horrific Vision solo run, that I find the spec very enjoyable and fun to play. I do. The animations, strong, very classic fantasy, and the overall feel of the spec will definitely satisfy a lot of melee DPS players, myself included, under some conditions. And for me, that condition, my friends, is boredom. Fury has stronger self-healing than some other warrior specs. Well, there are not that many, right? There is arms and there is protection, which makes it a contender, yep, rather than straight up something that I would discard. But in the light of the other high performers on the DPS kind of scale, melee DPS comparison scale, I actually don't think that Fury is strong enough to get into my top 3. So I have to make this somewhat sad and hard choice, letting it drop off my list. Arms Warriors. Speaking of sad and hard choices to make, here we go again with another enjoyable spec in many ways, but not self-sustaining enough to make it into anywhere near close to my top 3 of melee DPS specs of choice to compete for that for that place, and that there is only as much as I can say about that. At the very least, I do not really see myself investing time into Arms or Fury for that matter at the start of Shadowlands, while I still have my primary classes and specs of choice to level and gear up. Retribution Paladin. While I called Retribution a new glass cannon in the context of trying to push harder content of Horrific Vision solo and comparing Retribution's performance back then with Unholy Death Knight or even a Havoc Demon Hunter, I do find Retribution very easy to play and very enjoyable in general. Retribution offers a lot more utility and at least perceived variety of gameplay, and if I have to compare it to Havoc Demon Hunter, also allowing me to kind of double dip into this character's choice to gear up for my alt specs such as Holy Healer or Protection Tank. While I do want variety and don't mind at all to play several completely different characters performing different roles, rather than do the all-in-one kind of situation, Protection and Holy happen to be my very dear and favorite paladin specs. So looking at promoting Retribution to my choice of Melee DPS to the shortlist at the very least, and therefore gearing up the other two as potential switch down the track, would be kind of high on my agenda. So please don't be surprised if Retribution will end up in fact in my top 3 today, along with Havoc Demon Hunter. So let's keep going for now. Enhancement Shaman. More hard choices, oh my god. Enhancement is a lot of fun, and from everything that I've heard about Shadowlands so far, Enhancement is only getting better. The only negative for Enhancement, when I compare it to the other top choices I currently have my eyes on, are the numerous buttons that Enhancement relies on. If one could say that Havoc Demon Hunter or Retribution Paladin are both very easy to pick up and harder to master as specs, I probably could rephrase that and say that Enhancement Shaman is a spec that's both hard to pick up and hard to master. Does this make sense? Don't forget that I make these comments with a theory of relativity in mind. I don't look at classes and specs in isolation here. I have to compare as I go. I'll keep Enhancement in my list for now. Feral Druid. Another not super easy to play but very rewarding spec that also belongs to one of my overall classes of choice, the Druid. As I talked about Druid in my other class of choice videos, if Blizzard understood that Druids rely so heavily on their unique animal appearances that they need to be given some new forms in Shadowlands, and if they gave Feral something like Claws of Shirvala, cat form that we used to have in Warlords of Draenor, I'd go as far as saying right now that my choice would have been made right now. Yes, I love the other specs too, but this would have been so unique, fresh and appealing to me that honestly guys, I'd just jump straight at it. But since Blizzard didn't do that, because they'd rather have more micro holidays, I'm kidding, I'm just kidding guys, calm down. Point is, they decided not to invest extra effort clearly into making something like that happen, the new Druid forms. And that's why Druid sadly is dropping off my list. Windwalker Monk. Monks are another very busy, multi-buttony experience that's quite fun, very mobile, and generally I rate them quite highly when it comes specifically to a Melee DPS role. Windwalkers are somehow always very high performing on DPS meters in my hands, in spite of all the buttons, and as a person performing a specific role in a dungeon or a raid, you really want to see yourself, well, not suck, which boosts your morale and makes you like the character you're playing more, normally. So Windwalkers are cool in my eyes, but as we are in the progress of making fairly hard choices here, kind of trimming the list, I'd say Windwalkers are not cool or performant enough for me to ignore the metric ton of buttons, even if we compare that to Enhancement Shaman spec. So that is the reason why I have to let them drop off my list. Sorry guys. Survival Hunters. A very late discovery in BFA for me personally, with big thanks to my viewers and friends who recommended that I give this spec a try. I did, and I liked it enough to have fun with it for a week or two in Horrific Visions and other content. I do have problems with the spec, however. Its relative proximity to the enemy. While, let's say, a Beastmaster is much further away and much safer when cleaving and stomping pet is in front of them, keeping the enemies at bay. And generally also, at least in my hands, Survival Hunter is not the top DPS performance. You know, when I compare not even to some other people, abstract people, but if I compare, again, performance of classes in my hands, how I play, I do find survival a lot of fun. It probably is one of the funnest specs, and I will definitely go back to it on an off night when I'm bored, probably not even that late in Shadowlands expansion, but in all honesty, I simply cannot say that it would be my Melee DPS spec of choice, guys. It makes me quite sad, but it is what it is. Rogues! Now, my dear rogues, please don't hate me. I'm just expressing my opinions here and continuing to make hard choices, which in this case is actually quite easy. No, I'm not trying to rub it in. I've always said openly in all videos that mentioned rogues that I found some enjoyment in rogues, outlaw spec specifically, but I'm not a rogue player. It's always like the class of choice, spec of choice, sorry, when I came to rogues at one or another point of my WoW gameplay was outlaw, because it was the closest to how I generally play. I'm not a stealthy guy, I'm an in-your-face guy. So I play outlaw when I run out of things to do, like put very simply. I acknowledge that a lot of their toolkit, feel and gameplay are very fun, can be very fun, but there are, well, feels like a lot of classes and specs that I see as doing what the outlaw rogue would do, just better and easier. So while outlaw would be my spec of choice when I eventually come back to it, sometime towards the end of Shadowlands probably, subtlety and assassination are just completely foreign entities on my radar, and something that I wouldn't even remotely consider to play right now or in the next expansion. Let's not forget, just a quick friendly reminder, it's my personal list. It's not me trying to pass some sort of a global judgment that applies to everyone and reflects an absolute only truth out there. Completely not so, never positioned it as such. So subtlety and assassination, haven't had interest in the specs for a very long time. Don't still have it, not gonna play it. So we are arriving at my top 3 list of Melee DPS specs that I am going to consider playing in Shadowlands. What do we have? We have Havoc Demon Hunter, well, what a surprise. We have Retribution Paladin, and we have Enhancement Shaman. All of these are very solid choices in my opinion, and I probably couldn't go wrong with either if I had to push myself and pick one and leave the others completely, let them drop off. However, my friends, it's all about having fun, so I'll tell you that I'm not gonna do that, and I'm gonna play all 3 of these in Shadowlands. Ooh, surprise. Probably starting with Demon Hunter, since we have to at least order them in the, who goes first, who goes last. Demon Hunter will go first, because Demon Hunter is easy, feels like home, feels a bit boring. Yes, it does, but it feels the safest. It feels the safest when we're dealing with uncertainty of Shadowlands and Shadowlands content. I think, personally, at least. Demon Hunter will be closely followed by Retribution Paladin. Another not a mega surprise. Retribution Paladin also is I'm a bit more familiar, a bit more comfortable, plus additional specs of protection and holy. If I want to switch to healing a group now and then, it actually gives me a little bit more of flexibility, I think. Plus, Retribution is really performing well on DPS meters, so I will not be ashamed of myself. And finally, we have Enhancement Shaman, more for fun, for funsies, and plus, I'm okay as a DPS on Enhancement. I'm not great, but it is one of those more complex specs, but something you can laugh if you want, but something that I might choose to challenge myself with from time to time. Obviously, guys, as I said in the comments to the other classes of choice videos that I published recently, we'll have to wait and see, right? Things are still in the state of flux. Beta is beta, and I'm not in it as well, so to have all the latest information. So things are changing. Choices will change as the rubber hits the road with the pre-patch for Shadowlands and when the expansion goes live, obviously. But these are my choices for now, and I really truly hope that this video explained my reasoning behind those choices to you too, and maybe helped you make your choices, or at the very least suggested, if nothing else, then at least a framework of how you should try and look at your own choices, maybe compile your own list and arrive at your own top 3. As always, please let me know in the comments below the video what Melee DPS class spec mainly you'll be playing, unless you don't differentiate between your main all-rounder spec, whatever it is, and a specialist job of a Melee DPS that you might have to perform in a dungeon or LFR or whatever else is the content of your choice is. There are many ways to enjoy the game, and while some people choose to put all eggs into one basket, and they'll put all their game time into that one character, I usually hedge my best bets and spread my attention to multiple classes and specs, which I think helps me personally enjoy World of Warcraft and any other particular expansion a lot longer than it would have been. I just know myself. Please subscribe to show your support, my friends. I really appreciate it, and like the video if you did like it. And I'll talk to you again on some other Warcraft related topic in a couple of days' time. As always, bye for now.